Bye.
Take it away, Sean.
Well, thank you, Danny. Welcome everyone to TRICON, Trimarc's first virtual InfoSec conference. So working out some of the technical details, but we've got it. I am your kickoff keynote, so welcome. I decided to call this talk, What Are We Even Doing? Because often I feel like the blue team is like Wile E. Coyote chasing the Roadrunner. We have some wins, but it seems quite daunting. So let's talk about some of these things that we're challenged with and what we're trying to do here. I am Sean Metcalf, founder and CTO of Trimarc. We help improve security for organizations around the world, including the Fortune 10 and beyond. Our customers are in your wallet, on your phone, in your house, in your driveway, and companies you interact with every day. And I presented on numerous Active Directory and Azure AD, Entra ID security topics at conferences all over. So I have about 20-ish minutes to focus on some of the bigger picture items. I can't provide clear solutions in 20 minutes, so I decided to challenge you to think of ways to make things better. You've probably seen this quote before. Defenders have to be right all the time, while attackers just need to be right once. This is false. Absolutely false. At least the way it's written. So I call this the defender's paradox. And while the previous statement is mostly true, when the attacker is attempting to break into an organization, once the attacker is inside, this dynamic flips, and the attacker has to be careful not to make any mistakes. This is where Jessica Payne many years ago talked about building the defender's playground, creating an environment that you control and you can have visibility of, and you want to basically shift and adjust and have the attacker end up in areas where you have better visibility. One of the things that I like to mention is that while attackers can do almost anything, there are usually only a handful of ways to perform certain actions. Identifying these and building detection and alerting around them can be very effective. So if you figure out which ways attackers would want to move in your environment, you can ensure that there's appropriate tripwires, honeypots, etc. And for me, my journey started with a book, The Cuckoo's Egg. And Clifford Stahl, who's the author of this book, managed computers at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, or LBNL, in California. In 1986, a supervisor asked him to track down an accounting error of 75 cents related to the computer system. He traced the accounting error to an unauthorized user who had apparently used 9 seconds of computing time and not paid for it. Eventually, he realized the unauthorized user was an attacker who had gained admin rights to the system by exploiting a vulnerability. And he used the LBNL system to jump to ARPANET and MILNET, which is the predecessors to the internet. He set up a honeypot, probably one of the first ones, by inventing a fictitious department in LBNL that had supposedly been newly formed by SDI contract, which he made up. When he realized the attacker was particularly interested in the fake SDI entity, he filled this account with large files full of interesting looking data. This worked, and the Deutsche Post tracked down the attacker in Hanover, Germany. The attacker's name was Marcus Hess, and had spent many times hacking into sensitive systems and selling information to the Soviet Union's intelligence agency, the KGB. So the KGB was buying information from Hess, but apparently leveraged someone else to validate the information because Stahl received a request by mail to the fake SDI department that ended up being part of this validation. In a very real way, the reason why we're all here today is because of events that happened almost 40 years ago. And since then, we've been engaged in this battle of attacker versus defender. With Active Directory, and just before that, we have been dealing with problems in security for a very long time. Windows attacks, Active Directory attacks often are from years ago, capabilities, tools, techniques, etc. When Paul Ashton posted an NT bug track about pass the hash, and the CDC came up with SMB Relay and SMB Relay 2. The first NB spoofing attack tool released in 2007, and Hernan Ochoa publishing the Pass the Hash toolkit, which he later called WCE. WCE came out in 2010. A year later, we end up with Mimikatz, and the world changes. We also, in 2012, have the capability and understanding about group policy preferences and how bad the passwords are that are stored within them, because they can be reversible, or they can be reversed in clear text. Responder is released in 2012. In 2013, we get the PowerShell version of Mimikatz called Invoke Mimikatz. And in 2014 is the Golden Ticket attack, as well as Silver Tickets, as well as Kerberos, as well as PowerView. So certainly in these sort of wonder years, these early years of what I call Active Directory attacks, there's tools, there's privilege escalation, there's persistence, things that enable the attacker. And then things just get worse from an Active Directory perspective in what I call the golden years for attackers, 2015 to 2019. DS internals, Kekio, PowerSploit, Impacket. We have PowerShell Empire. We have DC Sync. We have unconstrained delegation attacks, CrackMap exec. Just it continues and continues throughout these years. We end up with Bloodhound, learning how to go from DNS admin to domain admin, Death Star, NTLM Relay X, the ace up the sleeve Black Hat talk, talking about Active Directory permissions. And then 2018, we have a number of additional capabilities, including DC Shadow and Rubius, and the infamous, at this point, printer bug. 2019, more capability, especially around Kerberos constrained delegation. Again, a ton of tools during this period. This was a very tough time for defenders. But the other side of it is defenders were enabled by security researchers publishing information, and the best way to do this is to provide information about the attack, provide the best way to defend it. If you're a red teamer, if you're a pen tester, providing that information to enable and empower the defender. 2020 to 2023, or present, is what I call the third age. We end up with Avalanche in 2020, Remote Potato Zero, Petit Potem, the certified pre-owned talk at Black Hat, which is the compendium ADCS attacks, including a tool called Certify, the Kerberos Relay attack by James Forshaw, Certify, and Kerb Relay Up. Again, a ton of things that really impact what we look at and how we respond to Active Directory attacks. And certainly in InfoSec, we have a lot of challenges, like a monolith that just appears out of nowhere. And I've worked in many organizations, heard too often that an attacker couldn't do X because the security here is too good, or the specific security controls are really strong so the attacker wouldn't be successful. In the movie Deep Blue Sea, starring Samuel L. Jackson and Thomas Jane, scientists decide to make sharks bigger, faster, smarter. What could possibly go wrong? They expect that the underwater structure and fencing will be enough, but don't anticipate the sharks being smart enough to escape, and the humans feel like they have everything handled. Spoiler alert, the humans were wrong, and they're definitely going to need a bigger plane. Everyone makes assumptions, probably weekly if not daily. Few of these likely have as much impact as assuming that you know what the attacker could do. If an organization has ransomware and clean it up, they may assume that they're good now. But what if the ransomware was only just a smokescreen to misdirect from the attacker hidden in the environment? In the movie Pirates of the Caribbean, Commander Norrington assumed they had Jack Sparrow where they wanted him. He sent all his men over to capture Jack and Will Turner, only to have the tables turned, where Jack and Will swing over to the Interceptor, the fastest ship in the fleet, and then they steal it. Thus, Grand Theft Auto was born. SolarWinds is trusted, much like the gatekeeper system in the movie The Net. When clicking on a special symbol on certain websites and providing a specific password, the Praetorians gain full backdoor access to systems protected by Gatekeeper. When you have a trusted system like Gatekeeper or SolarWinds with a lot of access, that can be dangerous. Technical debt is a big challenge. It's when systems are not upgraded over time and they languish. This creates a situation where older systems and or software prevents newer, more secure configuration. One of the key issues we have seen when performing Active Directory security assessments is old systems holding back security. A good example of this is old NetApp network appliances that can't be updated to the newer ONTAP version in order to enable SMBv2. In the Star Wars universe, the Starship Enterprise had issues that were effectively duct taped and pushed beyond limits. Bad passwords are responsible for numerous breaches, just about all of them actually. Very likely a bad password was the key to the SolarWinds breach. I've been involved in breaches where the admin's password was guessed pretty easily because the password was really bad. In the movie Spaceballs, the password for the planet's force field was easily guessable. I should probably change my password to my luggage. In the movie War Games, Ferris Bueller learned where the school system password was and locate it and kept and secured. It was in a drawer, and he got a peek at it when it was changed. Knowledge of the password enables him to change his grades. It's not that much different how passwords protect environments, most environments around the world. And the media is full of articles about nation-state attackers in 0 days. And we tend to focus on the stealthy attacker that's practically impossible to defeat, like the Predator. And unless you're Arnold Schwarzenegger, Predator will stay hidden and triumph. But the reality is all these attackers are working out of the same playbook. And once we work on the fundamentals and get those tightened up and implement better security around the things that we know that attackers are doing, we can stop all of the different types of attackers, or at least frustrate them and make it more challenging. Another challenge is insider threat, which is when someone with access decides to perform actions counter to the interests of their organization. In the movie Jurassic Park, Dennis Nedry, played here by Newman, is the only computer programmer for Jurassic Park and has automated every system. He feels undercompensated and has engaged in industrial espionage. Since Newman wrote all the code and no one seemed to audit it, he has full control with no checks. Another big challenge is social engineering, when someone takes advantage of human psychology to get what they want. In the movie Catch Me If You Can, DiCaprio is a sophisticated con man, and early on he discovers that if he wears the right uniform and can talk the right lingo, he's accepted as a fellow pilot. In the movie Sneakers, Robert Redford needs to sneak into a building with lobby security without a badge. To do this, he shows up in the lobby asking about a delivery of cake and balloons. His colleague pretends to be making a delivery and causes a commotion. Meanwhile, the cake and balloons arrive, and Redford asks to be buzzed in since he can't reach the badge reader, and he's let in. In the movie Black Hat, Thor learns how to use a computer and sends an email to his target recommending they change the password. Included in this email is a PDF attachment, which, when run, installs a remote control agent. This happens all the time in organizations. In the movie Troy, after the mermen withdraw and King Agamemnon realizes he can't breach the city wall, they leave a large wooden horse, and the people of Troy bring it into the city. This became known as the Trojan horse. The Greek army hid warriors inside the horse and emerged once the Trojans were asleep. In the movie Skyfall, starring James Bond, Q, for some reason, no idea why, decides to connect the villain's computer to the MI6 computer network. Unsurprisingly, the computer releases malware which takes over the network and shuts down security. And finally, another challenge, which is a more recent one, on July 19, 2025, the world suffered from the largest global computer crash in history since ZeroCool crashed 1,507 systems in one day back in the 80s. This was due to an issue with a file that was pushed out to all CrowdStrike Falcon agents running on Windows computers, resulting in over 8 million computers crashing into a boot loop. So we have a lot of challenges in the world, but it's not all hopeless. I think one of the challenges that we often have is there's a red team, there's a blue team, there's a purple team. What team am I part of? Which team is the best? And with all the different colors, it can be difficult to know where to align. But what if I told you that we're all part of the blue team? The adversary is attacking all of us. Blue, red, purple, whatever, we're all on the same side defending. Certainly with the issue with the CrowdStrike outage, everyone banded together. Everyone was working to try to figure out how to get this going again. Reaching out, touching, getting to each computer, logging onto them, starting those computers up in order to get things fixed. Because ultimately it takes a village to make things better. The goal is to make things better and improve security for our organization or our customers. What do you see here? Well, it's about perspective. Ultimately, red and blue are on the same team, two sides of the same coin. It doesn't matter if it's a duck or a rabbit. It can be both. And sometimes the challenges that we face are fairly nuanced, not very clear. And we have to use our own guidance, our own recommendations, our own thoughts and ideas of how we can overcome these challenges. Sometimes we have to be creative. One of the most important things anyone in an organization can do is let security know when you see something unusual. Security and operations have to work together. Just like Cliff Stahl was able to discover an attacker from another country, anyone can identify anomalous activity that might be an active attacker. Don't let imposter syndrome stop you from trying to identify anomalous activity. I was recently told about the hidden SID attack, which is an Active Directory attack I had never heard of before, so I asked what it was. And the person running the slides didn't know what it was and had to research the term. Turns out it was related to SID history, something I talked about in 2015. Don't be afraid to ask questions. One of the key things that we can do as defenders, if you're a defender, is to learn how attackers operate, how they work. Dr. Kathy, who's going to be doing the closing keynote, wrote a book about how to look at the attacker's perspective, see things from the attacker's perspective, being an active defender. But one of the things that often holds us back is the imposter syndrome. We all feel like imposters from time to time. And many times in the past several years, I felt like an imposter, like I didn't belong, like I shouldn't be there speaking about things. Like other people know more about this than I do. Because it's impossible to know everything, especially in a field like InfoSec. Which brings me to what I feel is one of the most powerful words in the English language, yet. It's very important to add the word yet to our vocabulary. I don't know Kerberos. I don't know Kerberos yet. I don't know Active Directory. I don't know Active Directory yet. I don't know how this Entra ID conditional access policy thing works yet. So when you're thinking about things, reframe your thinking and how you are framing things into, instead of I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do this yet. And one of the challenges we have is that what's theoretical years ago is often practical today. We've known for years that service account passwords that are really bad. Actually, we knew they were vulnerable because they were really bad. They're usually 15, 20 years old. But since there was no simple method to guess these passwords or figure them out, they stayed bad. Along comes Kerberos, and now attackers can brute force service account passwords offline and have as much time as they want to. We need to, instead of making assumptions that everything's fine, we need to look at the environment and do tabletops and start working out how could an attacker leverage this. At Trimarc, we take the approach of if this one security control fails, what is the impact of what's left? So we look at things in layers, and there's got to be defensive layers in order to protect the environment. And sure, we can't make things perfect, but we can make them better. Because ultimately, a 40% security solution deployed today is better than the 100% solution that won't happen for many years. Because we don't want to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And I'm going to close with this thought for you. A year from now, you'll be a year older. What are you going to do? So think about that for a minute. So here we have Trimarc putting on TRICON, and we really appreciate all our speakers. We appreciate all of you for joining us because community is very important to me and therefore is a real priority to Trimarc. I want to challenge everyone to think about one way something you can do to help somebody else make something a little bit better, publish something that's helpful. Try to make things better because ultimately it takes a village to make everything better. It takes a village to improve security. At Trimarc, we publish to the GitHub. Trimarc GitHub, we publish to our Content Hub. We also have webcasts and, of course, putting on this conference. We want to make things better. We want to improve things, and we can only do that as a community. So thank you all for your help. Appreciate you all joining and looking forward to a great TRICON conference here. The slides will be published as well as the videos. And a very special thank you to Danny for coming up with the idea and getting this thing rolling. Back to you,
What a brilliant idea to wake up at 7 a.m. on a Sunday.
Trimarc Vision is the next evolution in the identification of security issues across all your Active Directory environments. The Trimarc Risk Score is based on real-world expertise of Trimarc's industry-leading Active Directory and Microsoft Cloud security experts. Most importantly, Trimarc Vision helps you to answer the questions facing your Active Directory security posture today, such as what risk do I have in my environment? What actionable steps can I take today, tomorrow, this week to best mitigate my risk of an attack on my Active Directory? What should I be most concerned about within my Active Directory forest where it concerns potential attack vectors? What is the current security posture of all my AD forests? Trimarc Vision, visibility at the speed of operations.